Hi, I'm Jill. I've been working for iTutorGroup for 1 month now, so I thought I'd do a little update video on my experience and how it's going. So I made a video about a month ago about the application process and about starting out. So if you're interested, I'll put the link up here somewhere and I'll put it in the comments below. So this is just an update after 1 month, how I feel about it, how the teaching's going, what the students are like, what the system's like, and how much I got paid, which is really what everyone wants to know. So let's get started. I'll tell you all about my first month with iTutorGroup. So once I got started, it was very quick to understand what I was doing and to get into the routine of it. So I said in my first video, you have to put in for at least 6 regular hours, and they have to be in their peak times. So the hours I chose are a Wednesday night from 9:30 till 11:30 at night, and Saturday 2 hours in the late morning and 2 hours in the late afternoon. So I'm fixed to those. I have to do those hours. So I just check the app on my phone, or I can check on the computer and find what lessons they've given me for those hours. So I don't have a choice. They're either 25-minute, 40-minute or 45-minute lessons. And it's a different pay rate for each one. Sometimes you have individual students and you can have up to 6 students in a class. So that's what mostly for the first month, I just did those regular hours. So I just wanted to get used to what I was doing, get comfortable with the platform, get comfortable with the materials that I was using to teach. There is a rating system. So at the end of every lesson, the students can give you a rating and give comments. They don't have to. So initially I had 1 or 2 ratings. I think my first 2 students both gave me a rating of 10, which was really nice. And then over the first couple of weeks, I didn't get many ratings. Apparently most students don't actually rate the teachers. Something like 70% of students don't give ratings. They don't have to. I got 1 rating of 8 and I got a couple of ratings of 9. And at the end of the month, you get emailed a progress report, which gives you all the comments that people have left. But I've since discovered that you can go on each day when you get the feedback on the app, and you can click on that student that's given you a rating, and it shows you the comments that they've given, which I think are set comments that they just click, enthusiastic, gave instant corrections, this kind of thing. So within my first month, mostly the first couple of weeks I did have 1 8 and a couple of 9s, but since then they've all been 10s, with the exception of 1 rating, and it was a lesson I felt went really well. I thought it was a really good lesson. It was with like maybe a 7-year-old, and we had fun. She interacted. We did lots of speaking. She seemed really happy. And then the next day I woke up and looked at my ratings and found that she'd rated me 1 out of 10. And comments were things like unfriendly, unenthusiastic, didn't give enough speaking time. It just didn't reflect the lesson itself. Now you can't please everyone all of the time. I don't know if the parent expected something different from the lesson, or one of my friends said maybe the kid clicked the buttons and couldn't read it, so didn't know what she was clicking to leave the feedback. Or maybe there was another reason. I don't know, but I can't control that. And I think I'm experienced enough as a teacher that the rating itself didn't make me feel bad. It didn't make me think like, oh, I think a few years ago, I would have felt like, what did I do wrong? Oh no, that's really bad. But I know the lesson went well. I know the kid had fun. So it didn't affect me in that way. But I have read, and I'm still learning about iTutor, that it runs on the rating system, and you have to keep your rating average above 9.6. So because I haven't taught many classes, and then I got a rating of 1. This brought my average way down. So it was like 9.1 or something. So I was in the bottom percentage of teachers, and oh no. But what I'd read is that if your rating drops below that level, then you can get banned from the platform for a week and you have to do video training before you can go back. So I was quite concerned that they would stop me being able to teach because of this 1 bad rating. So I sent an email to the support group at the company asking if they could have a look at the lesson, because I know all lessons are recorded, and said I didn't think it reflected what happened in the lesson. I don't think a rating of 1 really shows what happened in the lesson. Can you have a look into it? I don't want this to reduce my ratings. And I had a really nice email back from them saying, we've had other teachers had similar complaints, but the system works that way. Once a student makes a rating and it's published, we can't take it back. If the rating is below 7, they go and speak to the student and find out what the problem is and see if they can deal with it. And as far as the rating system goes, they told me that it's now been changed and it goes on your first 200 hours of teaching. So once I've done 200 hours of teaching, a one-off rating of 1 isn't going to make that much difference to my average, so it won't make a difference then. And as it is now, a couple of weeks on from that, my rating's back up to where it should be because I've had lots more 10 ratings. So I think you've just got to be prepared that you could get a bad rating. I think something with like teaching, your feedback is really in the classroom. I think you learn to know whether your lesson was good or bad. We all have good lessons, we all have bad lessons. And you know whether your lesson was good or bad. You don't need to read a report from a student to tell you that. It is nice to read the good ratings. It gives me a little nice feeling in the morning when I get up and check my ratings from the day before, and there's comments that friendly, enthusiastic, gave lots of good feedback and instant corrections, things that they liked about it. So it's all positive generally, and it gives you a nice feeling. But you've just got to not let it get to you if you get the negative comments as well. I have been teaching for a little bit more than 10 years. And I have taught kids a lot. I taught kids in Japan. So at least I'm used to the kind of teaching that I'm doing now. So it is mostly kids. So I'm used to the kind of materials there are. I'm happy to expand on them. And I'm comfortable with that. The materials are all given to you. And you just have to adapt them to the student. Generally, there are OUP classes, which are the Oxford University Press classes, which they run sequentially. So students move through the levels of the books and there is a course that they're following. And then there's regular lessons, which are just random lessons given to the students. They don't follow on one from the other. I do a mixture of both of those. The OUP lessons are more structured and they have a list of teacher's notes at the side of the screen, which tell you what to do, like in great detail. Say this, say that. Give them this sticker, give them that heart, clap your hands, smile. Really tells you exactly what to do. So if you need that, that's perfect. But it's also very flexible as well. Like, I follow the slides, I use the materials, but I don't always do exactly what it says in the teacher's notes. The students that I've had. So the youngest students are about 4 or 5 years old. And then I've had some group classes of adults as well. Mostly that's during the day and they're conversation classes. The first time I had one, I was asking the students to put their webcams on and they said, oh, I don't have webcams. So I've learned that for the kids classes, especially the individual ones, they have a camera and you can see them, which really helps. For the adult conversation classes, they don't have their camera on. So it's just speaking. They can see you and they can see the materials on the screen. And you can give them a pencil so they can draw lines and type things on the screen, but you can't see them. And again, just today, I had a group lesson with 4, 7 and 8-year-olds, and I could see that they were all still at school. Must have been sitting at their school computers. So there was a lot of noise in the background, and there's obviously other kids there. So some of it was a bit distracting. And only one of them had their webcam on. And there was a little message saying there is no webcam. So generally you can see the students, but sometimes you can't. I had a teenager yesterday who didn't want to put her webcam on. I don't know whether she didn't want to or she had problems with it. So there are technical issues as well, but they are kids. So sometimes I'm not sure whether it's technical issues or whether it's the kids. One thing they do ask you to do, and is good to do, is to use lots of props. A puppet is really good to have. So I have my kangaroo puppet because I'm here in Australia. So it's what I had. And he joins me in a lot of the kids' lessons. So, hello! He helps me out, and it helps sometimes the kangaroo can ask a question, or I can ask a kangaroo. I had one lesson with a 5 or 6-year-old who she didn't speak for the whole lesson. She watched and she listened, but basically I taught the kangaroo. So I asked him questions, he answered, she listened. She didn't speak at all. Maybe she thought I was a TV show. I don't know. But she was happy. I got a rating of 10, so it must have gone well. But props are good, especially animals with the little kids. Like I have lots of cuddly animals because I had 2 girls. They're now grown up, but I like cuddly toys, so I didn't throw them away. I've got a crocodile. He's the bad guy. Gets a lot of no responses for that. Or the boys like him. Turtles. So it is worth getting out any cuddly toys that you have, or just buying some cheap ones from the shops, because they are very useful. It's also worth sometimes looking at the lesson materials beforehand. Sometimes like you can just grab a cap or an apple, something that you're talking about in the lesson that's useful to have. As far as planning ahead, nothing is confirmed until 1 hour before the class. So I have gone through writing notes on my whiteboard and making notes about what I'm going to do like a couple of days in advance, and then it all changes. So I've learned, and I like to plan, so this is difficult for me, but I've learned to just let it roll and not really try and look at what lessons I have until just before the time. It's easy enough to go through. Like I said, all the materials are there. I know what I'm doing now, so I'm comfortable with that. I tend to set up my computer half an hour beforehand, just in case there's any problems with setting it up. Sometimes it's an hour beforehand, and I do make notes when it's an hour before and it's fixed of the names of the students, and just notes like if the slides, if there's 12 slides in a class that I have to go through, the different pictures, the material, I might just make a note of how many there are and where I want to be time-wise with each one, like halfway through by 10 minutes or the 4th slide by 5 minutes, so that I can just glance at that and make sure I'm on track. So there's not a lot of planning in advance goes on. It is very much, you know, the times that you've said you're available. You may or may not get classes at that time, and you won't know until an hour before exactly what you're doing. So as long as you're happy with that, I'm now finding that good. I've always been someone who plans ahead. I've never liked doing things at the last minute, but I'm enjoying the flexibility of that as well. So it allows me to fit different things in my day. Okay, the other thing I'm enjoying with iTutorGroup is the flexibility of the hours that I'm working. So like I said, I have to do the 6 main hours. So they're fixed. So Wednesday nights I do 2 hours and Saturday 4 hours. I don't have a choice in that. But I've learned how to add extra hours. And I've tried doing this a week in advance, and I've also done it just a day in advance. And it really doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter when I do it, because things don't tend to get booked more than a day in advance anyway. Occasionally things are put in a week in advance, but then sometimes they disappear. So it really is, you can do things day by day. You can think, oh, okay, I've got a few hours free tomorrow, and you can just go onto the schedule, click on the hours that you're available, and then you sit back and wait and see if they give you lessons. You have to do them generally in 1 hour blocks. There are a few 30-minute blocks you can tick in the middle of the afternoon Australian time, but mostly it's 1 hour blocks. And then you may get 25-minute lessons, you might get 40 minutes or 45-minute lessons. You don't have a choice with that. I prefer the 25-minute lessons because it works out to be more pay overall, because there's less dead time. So there's only 5 minutes between each lesson then. Whereas if you have a 40-minute lesson, there's always then a 20-minute wait before the next class starts, because they always start on the hour and the half hour. So like I said, for the first month, I just did the basic 6 hours a week. And then the second month, so I'm a couple of weeks into the second month now, and I'm starting to add extra hours. So I drop my daughter at school in the morning and I come back and I have 1 hour then. I do an hour before I go to pick her up after school, and then I do a couple of hours later on. If she doesn't have an after school activity, then I'll do 1 or 2 hours then. So I'm just fitting it in around my life, and I can choose week by week. So I'm just going to do it maybe 1 or 2 days in advance. So if something comes up, if I have some cover teaching work coming up next week, so I can just not say I'm available for those hours. So it's very, very flexible. All right, pay, money. This is what everyone wants to know. So I was working before in Cairns as a casual English teacher. So it wasn't a salaried rate. So what I got paid for was the hours that I worked, only the hours that I was in class. I always arrived early, I did prep, I did marking, but none of that is covered in the pay. The pay was for the hours that I worked. So that's what I've looked at here. So if a class is 25 minutes, I just put in as 25 minutes. So I've added up the minutes that I've been in class. I do arrive early, I set my background and my camera and everything up, and then afterwards you have to write a short report for each student, which takes a few minutes as well. But that, as far as I'm concerned, that's always been an extra part of teaching that I'm not paid for. I'm paid for the time I'm in class. So in my first month, remember, I only did the basic hours. I didn't do any extra hours. I did my roughly 6 hours a week, which may be slightly less because it's not exactly the hours. So overall, I did just over 17 hours, and you get paid in US dollars. So then it has to be converted to Australian dollars for me, and it's done by an international bank transfer. So I ended up getting $423 Australian for my 17 hours. So it actually works out, if I looked at the number of minutes and hours that I worked, that I taught, it's $24, 24 Australian dollars an hour is what I got paid for the first month that I worked there. Which, you know, I don't have to drive anywhere, it's flexible, it's easy, I love it, I really enjoy the students, I love teaching. So it's not as good as I was paid face-to-face, but situation I'm in now, it's something I enjoy, it's flexible, and it's money. So $24 an hour. There doesn't seem to have been any international bank transfer fees. So all it said on my statement was it gave the value in American dollars. It said the exchange rate, and then the full amount came into my account. Payday was the 9th of March. The money was in my account on the 10th of March. So I'm really happy with that. Like, you know, money comes quickly. It depends on the conversion rate on that day. So I could be lucky, could be unlucky. So overall, that's what I'm averaging, is about $24 an hour. So that's it. That was my first month working for iTutorGroup, Chinese company, mostly teaching kids. I have some regular students now. Apparently, I don't think they can directly choose the teacher, but if they rate you and they like you and they follow you, then they have more chance of the computer matches you up more, is how I understand it. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out what's going on with the company. But like I said, it's easy. As a teacher who's worked before with kids, all the material's there. You just have to have your setup, which I've done now. That took a while. So every day I just stick up my background, set up my computer, put on my red shirt, and do that for the hours that I want. So overall, first month working for iTutorGroup, I'm happy. I know there's a lot of people who've worked for them for a longer period of time, and coming up to last year and this year, things changed. So I heard the pay rate went down, people weren't happy with things. With the global pandemic, a lot changed in everyone's job. My physical job, I lost it completely. So I've gone into this job knowing what the pay rate was. I knew what the pay rate was. I knew, roughly what it was going to be like. So I've gone into it with my eyes open. I'm happy to have a teaching job. Yes, I think my skills, my experience, and my qualifications are probably worth a little bit more. But I've gone into it, like I said, with my eyes open. I'm very happy working for iTutorGroup at the moment. It fits my life at the moment. It fits what is happening. So I would recommend it to teachers who are looking for some online work for extra money or as a job. So there you go. That was my first month teaching with iTutorGroup. If you have any questions, anything I haven't mentioned, anything you'd like to know, anything you're interested in, leave me a comment below. I'm quite happy to answer questions. I'll also leave my referral link below, so if you feel like signing up and teaching for iTutor, please click on that link. If you sign up that way, it just means I get a referral bonus, which is always good. So yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll probably do another update in a month or two and let you know how it's going then. Okay, see ya, bye.